This is really giving me a headache.
What?
It really is.
Can I help you?
She's got it.
Okay, great. Everybody else has their iPads on?
Yep.
What are you doing?
Okay.
What did you do?
Last class, if you guys remember, which a couple of you weren't here with us, but last class we looked at the whole issue. We finished looking at the issue of how you get married in Israel. We looked at the whole issue of divorce in Israel, and not just in Israel, but really around the world, but what happened specifically in Israel. And we started to look at the idea of prayer or sharing holy spaces in Israel. Now, last week it came up, or it was 2 weeks ago for us, it came up, you guys were asking me about if Americans can come to Israel and go into the army. And I told you that yes, in fact, many Americans come to Israel and go into the army. And I have a young man who lives in my home with my family when he's not in the army, who is what we call a chayal boded, or a foreigner who comes and joins the Israeli army. And some of them go back to their home countries, to America or Australia or England. And some of them, like Yakir, make aliyah and wind up living in Israel. And I asked Yakir, who was home this weekend out of the army, if he would be willing the next time he was home to sit in on a class with us so that you guys could ask him questions, talk to him about what it's like to be American and come here and join the Israeli army. So the next time he's home, wherever we are, we will break, and he's agreed to come in and to join us for a session. So I will give Tova a heads up before that so you guys can prepare some questions. Yes.
I was actually considering, still am, going to Israel Army after high school.
If you are, that is absolutely a possibility. Many people, many girls and women do that as well as boys. And in fact, this past Shabbat, we had a young woman in our home who is born in Detroit, grew up in Boca, and she came to Israel on a gap year and decided to join the army. And she actually went in August to an elite paratrooper unit, to a, I don't know the word, you can join the paratroopers and then you can try out to be in one of their elite units. It's called Duvdevan, and she teaches them how to do navigation. So she was actually here, and I can probably get her to call into our phone call when Yakir joins us as well. So lots of opportunities for women in the army as well as for men, and for foreign young women as well as for foreign young men. Okay, guys, I'm going to ask you to look up in the screen, type in this tiny URL /Bethel Lori 7. But there's a hyphen between Bethel and Lori. Look up in the screen, type it in.
Oh, it's short for?
Yeah.
Guys, are you all typing in the
Yep. I'm definitely not sure how to post her.
Bethel-Lori 7?
Lori.
Okay, once you guys are in,
Hold on, I'm looking. If you're in, please raise your hand. 1.
Oh, no, I need permission. I'm signed in as someone else.
Oh, goodness.
According to this account.
Not again. Who you signed in as? Go Bethel School.
Wait, what?
Bethel.
Wait,
Oh,
you're
shoot.
blocking the thing.
okay, try it again. Just refresh and it should be fine.
Lori 7?
Yes.
Why don't we just use
The same one.
yeah?
Because then it would take you to the old presentation or the old slideshow.
You definitely have you would teach us places.
Okay, once you guys are in, you're going to click here. What does it mean that Israel is the Jewish state?
Maybe I'll refresh it.
And you're going to come on to,
Wait, you still need a password. Are you getting on?
no, you didn't need a password. Go back.
URL.com.
Hold on, I don't know.
Does everybody have the tiny URL?
Here,
I got
have me.
When I did it, it like said at the thing.
You got you. You got in. Hold on, we're working on it.
Okay.
Shanna, you got it? Sarah, did you get it? Almost. Lexi, did you get it?
Yes.
Jordan, we're just a lost cause.
I got it.
You got it?
Yeah.
Ah.
I just had to reload the code.
No lost causes.
I would.
Okay, guys, once you're in, you're going to click onto this Google Doc.
Did you get it?
What does it mean Israel is the Jewish state? You guys are going to fill this out, and then we'll kind of look at our responses to review. What is an aguna, or a chained woman?
On this.
How does Israel deal with the aguna situation? When did Israel gain control over the Temple Mount? Who is allowed to pray on the Temple Mount? And why do you think it's so complicated for people of all faiths to share prayer or holy space on the Temple Mount? And after you answer that, that is a question that is not multiple choice. You don't need to pick one. You need to answer and click submit.
Is it the who is eligible?
What? No.
What?
No, go to the.
Oh.
See, I don't know the answer.
Good guess.
Guys, these are your answers.
I don't know what it means.
Did you fill it out?
All right.
Oh, sorry.
Yours.
You go back.
Wrong.
What is
Okay.
temple
It
mount?
always happens. Then what did you do? You go,
Because you spelled Lori wrong.
Not L-O-A-R-I-E like Scout Lori.
Ew.
Yes. That's exactly how she spelled it.
Actually?
Yes.
Oh.
Did you actually?
what are you doing?
You did something.
No,
Excuse
it's
me?
Beth L.
Okay, guys, I see that one person has submitted their responses. Let's try. Once you're in, fill out your responses.
Did you get it?
I'm looking it up. Yeah, I just don't. I don't want to be super wrong. I don't know what it is.
I know a couple of you were not here with us last week, so you won't really know what an aguna is. So take a guess, and as we go over the responses, it'll become more clear.
So wait, who's
All right, we're some people are still pondering. Raise your hand if you finished.
No, I can see. I see that 4 of you have finished.
I finished.
Okay, so let's take another couple minutes, just finish up,
Raspberries in it.
and then we'll look together at some of the responses.
This is cool. Unless we hold it. Sarah, didn't say.
Jesus.
What?
Sequence to do this.
What does?
Sarah. Did you need help? Do you know I have an 8 lessons from like an 8 plus? And 8.4% is good. I'm gonna get into like freaking state. Can you be close? Good grades. Always.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, great. Okay, guys. So let's look at some of our responses. An aguna, or chained woman, is an Israeli woman who wants a divorce, but her husband won't give her a get or a Jewish divorce document. Or is it a Jewish woman who wants to divorce her husband? Or a Jewish woman who wants to divorce her husband, but he will not give her a get. So 67% of you realize that it's a Jewish woman, meaning this could be any one of you living anywhere in the world as a Jewish woman who's in a Jewish marriage. An aguna, or a chained woman, is a woman, a Jewish woman who wants her a divorce, but her husband won't give her a get. But the difference between you guys living in Chicago or somebody living in Jerusalem is that the only legal way for Jews to divorce in Israel is with a Jewish divorce. There is no such thing as a civil divorce in Israel. Okay, so we all understand that an agunah is a chained woman. How does Israel deal with the agunah situation? Okay, a couple of you thought it doesn't deal with it. Does anyone want to speak up to that?
No, because it's wrong.
What
Wow.
is?
That answer.
Okay, that answer is wrong, but there are women who are agunot, or people who families of women who are agunot, who would say that because they feel the country doesn't strongly enough deal with it. And 83% of you remember that we spoke a lot about the prenup or the postnup, and that one of the most positive way that rabbis have come up with today to deal with the whole agunah issue is by having young couples sign a prenup before they get married, or married couples sign a postnup after they're married to protect each other in case one of them wants a divorce. But you should know also, we talked about that rabbinic courts in Israel they do punish. If a husband refuses to give his wife a get, he can have his salary taken away, he can have his driver's license taken away, his community can be told, don't let him come and pray in a synagogue, don't have him over and invite him as a guest, don't serve him in a restaurant, and he can even be put in jail. So none of you said that, but that does happen. But you're absolutely right, you're 83%, that really the most proactive way rabbis deal with that and the courts deal with that today is with the pre and post nups. Okay, when did Israel gain control over Har HaBayit, or the Temple Mount? 50% of you said 1948. Why 1948? That kind of makes sense.
It was the first one.
Okay. The first one was.
It was the War of Independence. It was the War of Independence when Israel won her independence and won the right to establish a state in this land. Might have been 1948, but it wasn't. What happened in 1967?
We don't know, Lori.
You do know, guys. That's why you said 1967, because we talked about this last week. What happened in 1967? A miraculous event in a very short period of time, in a few days. Israel did it. The what?
6-Day War.
The 6-Day War happened in June of 1967, and Israel gained control of the old city once more, of the Kotel, right, the Western Wall, and of Har HaBayit. Who was allowed to pray on Har HaBayit, or the Temple Mount?
Whoever wants to.
Whoever wants to would be a great answer. Unfortunately, that is not the correct answer.
I mean, that's what my dream is, that everyone can.
Okay. Okay. The reality is that, as 67% of you know, only Muslims can pray on the Temple Mount. Does anyone remember why that is? Who controls who prays on the Temple Mount?
Muslims.
People.
Muslim.
But specifically, the Muslim Waqf, or the Muslim religious authorities. And who gave them the right to control who prays on Har HaBayit?
Oh, God. Lori, do you have any headache remedies?
Do you need some Advil or something?
I would put your head down on the desk and kind of quietly breathe. Who gave the Muslim Waqf the right to control Har HaBayit? Well, guys, think about it. It's a logical question.
That was the worst.
Israel won the right to control Har HaBayit in 1967. Who gave the Muslim Waqf the right to determine who prays on the Temple Mount? Okay, I'll leave that up to you guys to puzzle out and think about. Why do you think that it is so complicated for people of all faiths to share holy space on the Temple Mount?
They all think like that's their sacred place.
Okay, multiple religions sometimes don't agree about the significance of the location, or they fight about it. Everybody wants it. All religions try to gain control over it, and they end up fighting over who it actually is. No one can agree how to share the space. They all have to share a holy site, and they all want control over it. Okay, so the one thing you guys all kind of zeroed in on is that it's a power play. And going back to the last question I asked you, it's Israel who gained control of Har HaBayit, and Israel who gave the Muslim Waqf the right to control who or decide who prays on the Temple Mount. Why did they do that? Has to do with a lot of the responses that you guys gave, because it's complicated. And there's an entire Muslim world surrounding Israel, and the Temple Mount is like the matchbox or the tinderbox. It's a very explosive issue, and Israel tries to walk that fine line of keeping relations with the surrounding countries in the Muslim world. And in order to do that at this time, the decision is made that only Muslims will have the right to pray on the Temple Mount. Okay, so last week we looked a bit at the whole issue of Muslims and Jews sharing the holiest place to Jews in the world. For Muslims, it is not the holiest place. In fact, Jerusalem is not mentioned once in the Quran. The holiest place for Muslims is found in Mecca and Medina in Saudi Arabia. Not
What are they? Why are they just taking over it? It's not even mentioned.
Why are they taking over it? Why do you guys think they're taking over it?
Rude. This is not for them.
Okay, except that there is a mosque and a very important holy place for Muslims up on Har HaBayit, and for centuries they did have control, political control of this land and control of their holy spaces. So it's kind of part, and they're at war with us. So complicated political reasons. But now we're going to look at another very important place. You guys have all heard of the Kotel or the Western Wall?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to look. I'm going to ask you guys to come in here. You're going to click into Shared Religious Spaces, which is going to take you to this slideshow. We looked last week at the idea of prayer on Har HaBayit or on the Temple Mount. And now I'm going to ask you guys to look a little bit. You guys have your earbuds?
They do.
Everybody should take out your earbuds.
Oh.
There.
Oh no.
Mom, Dad, all my life I want one.
And I'm going to ask you guys to come into slide number 8 here. And I'm going to ask you to look at a history of non-Orthodox women's prayer at the Western Wall. We're going to look. You guys look at this article.
No.
Hold on, we're having trouble.
You're having trouble. What are you having trouble with?
It's like having her re-sign in, and I don't know why. Give me a sec.
1 second. I might not have wanted. 1 second.
Oh, my head hurts.
No, you should not have to re-sign in here.
No, I have a fever. No.
Yes,
You're actually pretty warm.
I know.
Do you want to go sit down?
Hilda, everybody had to re-sign in?
It's like
No, just one.
Okay, so those of you who don't have to re-sign in, why don't you go ahead and start? You have an article to read here or about who are the women of the wall. You have a video to watch about the women of the wall.
Here's a small problem. I can't click the article.
And you have a video to watch about women at the wall who have a different opinion.
This morning.
Excuse me.
Why won't she just order her name?
Why won't you?
I'm going to ask you guys to plug in your earbuds, and everybody on their own can take a few minutes to look through this article about the Women of the Wall. And then I want you to watch these 2 video clips in favor of. And again.
Can you share with Stephanie?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, because I can't get it to work.
Oh, that's nice.
Did you get it?
There's your one.
And
What
we
are
are
you
trying
on?
to get the Torah scroll to come with us to the light area so we can read it.
Where are you? Like,
Where
are you?
We are
Where did
Jewish.
you go to?
A guy is not allowed to
Okay.
read.
Somewhere.
It's telling her that there is a regulation that no one is allowed to read the Torah scroll.
Guys, I can show videos up front if you want everyone to watch them together. You guys can put in your earbuds so that
Oh, you
They have
your own.
one, we're one down.
Flori, ¿qué quieres?
No, go with this.
It's not working.
No, click on this.
Okay, let's go back to like, please. Where is it?
I'm checking if it's
It's not here.
What? What are you looking for?
it's
What are you doing?
Like, online.
I can't do it.
What? Stop hitting it.
I can't. Oh, no.
Get your game, get your game, get your game, get your game.
And participate with us.
Guys, there was a thing when I clicked it, it said open link, so trying to do that. That thing.
But
Yeah,
banning
that.
Torah for women,
Ooh.
not allowing women
Wait.
to
No.
read Torah.
Did you still not get it?
It's so good.
Yeah, that's great.
I can do it with here.
Oh, please don't do that. Like,
Oh, I just learned how to do that.
What? Go back here.
it's just not, no.
I just remember to do this. Just show
I
me.
don't know what happened.
So I guess it's over. Stop. What? Yo, did you? Oh! That's good.
No kidding.
What did you do? I spilled my drink.
See all these women coming together to stand for
Get your game,
something
get your game, get your game. I have so much homework.
Bro, you had all
ridiculous.
I
That
have
was
no.
psych.
something so
I have a
big and
freaking
so
nap
important.
test. I didn't study
I'll
for
say.
it.
I have like 4 tests this week.
In 2 days.
I don't have
Yeah.
schoolwork.
I have
That's
good
terrible.
grades.
I don't have chem
I
homework.
have good grades.
Well,
I'm like going to college. I thought I wasn't going.
I'm sure you would go to college.
I'm not going.
I'm going.
I'm not going.
What?
So I'm gonna go to like Wisconsin.
Wisconsin's a hard school.
Yeah, I'll get it. Trust me.
Yeah, but if the demand's not high,
Okay, guys, so I take it we finished watching all the videos and reading all the articles. So I'm going to ask you guys, Women of the Wall, what is it that they want to do? What is it that the organization Women of the Wall wants to change or wants to do?
People are joining.
I mean, this video is like 3 minutes
because
long.
we
You
eat
can
bagels
finish
every
it.
Wednesday.
So,
What a great reason to
Every
join.
bagels and every Wednesday for Jewish club.
That's good.
so yeah.
That's great.
So I'm guessing they're coming for the
That's
food.
right.
All my Christian friends come. It's really
Tova?
one bagel.
I'm trying to fix. I'm troubleshooting everyone's iPad.
I think we should just have like an in class discussion.
Okay, so you know what, guys? I'm going to show you a clip of the video, but just put your iPads down. If it's not working so well on your iPads, I'm just going to show you a clip of this video. Everybody can watch up front.
Oh,
Okay, this will give you an idea of who the Women of the Wall are.
This morning, Rosh Chodesh Shvat, the beginning of 2014, it's very unusual. We are 200 women, and we are trying to get the Torah scroll to come with us to the wall area so we could read it. Jews do read Torah on Rosh Chodesh, on New Month, and we are Jews, and we want to read. Avigail is not allowed to bring the Torah in. A policewoman is telling her that there is a regulation that no one is allowed to bring a Torah scroll from the outside because there are 100 Torah scrolls for public use in the men's section. Well, done that. We actually asked to use the one in the men's section, one of the 100 Torah scrolls there, and we were told that we're not part of the public that's allowed to use the Torah scroll. We're women. So here are Alexandra, Lucy, and Eliza, the three girls that won the prize to come to Israel with their mothers and participate with us in prayer. And they're watching the Israeli police banning Torah from women, not allowing women to bring the Torah so we could read like human beings at the wall.
Okay, guys, I think you can get a sense from that video. What is it that the women at the wall want to be able to do?
Pray.
Pray where?
I hope so. Change it.
Pray where?
At the Western Wall.
They want to be able to pray at the Western Wall. Aren't women allowed to pray at the Western Wall?
Yes.
Not with the Torah.
I don't care. I mean, I'm able to pray.
Yeah, but then you can.
Women are allowed to pray at the Western Wall. Do you guys know how prayer is arranged at the Western Wall?
Do I know how? It's not an egalitarian.
I mean, I'm not going to fight that.
It's not egalitarian. What does that mean?
Men and women pray separately.
Okay, there's a mechitza or a separating barrier down the middle. Men on one side, women on the other side. Men and women pray differently. Men usually pray in a minyan. They can sing out loud. They can read from the Torah. What happens on the women's side?
They were.
They what?
It sounded like they were praying out loud.
Okay, it sounded like they were praying out loud. Do you know what happens a lot of times on Rosh Chodesh when women of the wall come to the wall and they wear a talit or they wear a tefillin or they pray out loud? A lot of times they are attacked by other people at the wall. Oftentimes they're arrested. If they wear a talit or if they try to bring a Torah in, they can be arrested for trying to do that.
Like, be arrested for wearing a talit?
You can be arrested for wearing a talit at the Western Wall when that's not considered the appropriate clothing for a woman to be worn at the Western Wall. Yes.
Are there gay people in Israel?
Yeah.
Wow.
Are there transgenders in Israel?
Yeah.
There absolutely are, and we're going to talk about that in one of our classes. You can be gay still, you can, yes. Yes.
Like you can go to, like I could say I'm a guy and go to the guy side.
Well, are you transgender?
No, but if I was,
No.
could I?
If you look like it, no, there isn't the kind of sensitivity or awareness in Israel necessarily to that. If you looked like a man, yes, by all means, you would go to the men's side. They wouldn't let you walk down to the women's side.
Sarah,
what do you guys think about that? About what the women of the wall want to do? About what happens when they try to do it?
What do you think about it?
It's not good.
It's
I
not
like
good?
it.
You don't like it?
I like it.
Do
You
you
like it?
guys, what kind of a synagogue do you guys pray in?
This one.
It's egalitarian, but they're still strict about women reading Torah and like leading services.
Okay, it's egalitarian, so what does that mean? Men and women sit together?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do women do in the service during the prayers?
And, like my mom just talks to her friends.
Oh.
Like
That happens in every synagogue around the world. Men
My
and
family-
but
my
what
family-
are women allowed to do if they want to? Are women allowed to lead prayers? Are women allowed to read Torah?
So women are allowed to read Torah for the most part. There's certain parts of the service that men only can lead.
Okay. Okay, so do any of you read Torah?
No, it's just not my thing.
I just don't want to. It's not like I can't.
None of you read Torah. Okay. So all of you would be completely fine with and think it's completely fine that prayer at the Western Wall should be Orthodox prayer.
No.
I don't really care. I mean,
Yeah.
there's
You can
bigger
be whatever
problems
you
in this
want
world.
it to be.
Why do you not care?
There's bigger problems in this world. I don't have time to like worry about this. I'm sorry.
Okay.
The people
That-
dying.
It's not
You're
your issue. You don't have to lie about it. It's not your issue. You should know that there are many American Jews, especially this week, who are really fighting this issue and very angry about this issue. Because a year ago, last January, the Israeli government agreed to make a big section at the wall set aside for egalitarian prayer. So there would be prayer for Orthodox Jews, and there would be prayer that any kind of Jew, just like we said on the Temple Mount, Jews can't pray there the way they want to pray. The government agreed to make it so that Jews can pray, all Jews could pray how they want to pray at the Kotel, at the Western Wall. And in June, the government was forced by religious parties in the government to kind of back out of their deal. And a lot of Jews, especially American Jews, were very angry about that. And last week in California, there was a big meeting of leadership of American Jews, and the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, spoke to them, and he spoke about this issue. And he said how he knew, as the head of the Israeli government and the head of the Jewish country, that it was very important that all Jews be able to come and pray at the Western Wall, and he was working on it. And he said this on Tuesday, and on Thursday, a group of Reform rabbis and of egalitarian Jews came with Torahs to the Kotel, and they were physically attacked there, and they weren't allowed to pray there. So this is an issue which, it might not be my issue, it might not be your individual issues, but it's a big issue in Israel amongst Israeli Jews, and it's a very big issue amongst a lot of American Jews. And a lot of American Jews, when they come to Israel, even groups of kids your age who think that prayer isn't important, and they come to Jerusalem for the first time, and they want to go to what is considered the holiest place that Jews can pray, and they see that they can't pray in their way of praying. It bothers a lot of people. So just like it can bother, and we can say, well, that's not right that Muslims tell us what to do on the Temple Mount, there are a lot of Jews who are bothered about the idea that the Israeli government tells them how they have to pray at the Kotel. And that's Jews amongst Jews, not Jews having to deal with politics and the world and Muslim countries. So why do you guys think it is that the Israeli government would not just let anybody pray however they want to pray at the Kotel?
It's been the same for like all these years and we don't want to change.
Okay, that could be one reason. If you guys had watched that other video against, it was a group of more traditional people saying when you go into the British Parliament, you can't wear shorts and a tank top. There's a dress code. And there's a way that prayer has always been at the Kotel, and that's the way it should continue to be. Why else do you think that it might be that the Israeli government doesn't allow everybody to pray however they want at the Kotel? One is tradition. Why else?
Just take a guess. Why do you think? Think of the Israeli government. What is the Kotel run in accordance to?
I don't know.
Is it run by conservative Judaism?
Orthodox.
Okay, so as we said, there's that tradition piece, and it's run, and we have that tradition, the way things have always been done, and it's run by the Orthodox. But I think what Tova's pointing to is the same thing that we saw when we looked at marriage, the same thing we saw when we looked at Shabbat and how Shabbat is observed in Israel, the same thing we look at when we look at the whole Jewish divorce issue, which is that Judaism is the state religion here, and that becomes very political, and it gets determined by religious political parties, and it gets determined by the state official religion, which here in Israel is Orthodox. And for some of you, that doesn't bother you because you think that's the way it should be. Some of you aren't interested in prayer and think we have bigger issues. And some of you think, well, no, it kind of should be opened up. And you should know, and if you read the news or follow the news, read any Jewish newspaper in America, the New York Times, the Chicago Tribune, these issues are talked about, or look online at any of their websites. Washington Post had a big article about it today. These issues are talked about because it has to do with what makes Israel a Jewish state. And because we're a democracy, we can fight about these issues. And like we see change happening slowly with Shabbat and changes happening with divorce and with marriage, also change starts to happen with how we share public prayer spaces. Okay, guys. So we've looked at sharing of holy spaces, sharing of profane spaces, like on Shabbat. We've looked at marriage, we've looked at divorce. The last issue I wanted to look at is who is eligible to become an Israeli citizen. Just before we go into this line and you guys look at who can become an Israeli citizen, who do you guys think can become Israeli citizens?
Someone who has a Jewish mother.
Okay, one idea, someone who is a Jewish mother. Any other ideas?
People are in the IDF.
People who are in the IDF.
If you come to the country to be in it, then you can.
If you come in the country to be in the IDF. Okay, I want you guys to click into this lino. I'm going to ask you to start with number 1, and I want you to read about who is eligible for Israeli citizenship. And then I want you to go to number 2, and I want you to read about who is eligible for U.S. citizenship. Then I want you to answer for me, why do you think Israel has the law of return, which you will read about in number 1? And then I want you to answer for me, what are some of the differences between how you can become an Israeli citizen or a U.S. citizen, and what do you think about that? So everybody should start by clicking onto number 1 and looking at who is eligible for Israeli citizenship.
We're not figuring that one out. Okay. Did you find it? Is eligible for Israeli citizenship. Go back to the PowerPoint.
Is it 79 for her?
Wait, where?
Yes, it is.
That's kind of cool. We're like about to live your day.
You're about to, you know what? I always say that to my sister when I speak to her every day. I usually speak to her at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I always tell her, yes, that she's going to relive my day. You are, indeed. And I finished your day already. It was a really good one.
Are you jealous?
No, I'm exhausted. I get to go to sleep soon. I get to have a glass of wine and relax and go to sleep. Oh, I'm not jealous at all.
Lori!
I'm over 21. It's okay.
That's okay.
I'm really turning 21 today.
Well, he's already done everything. He's made it.
Hey guys, everybody should be reading about who's eligible to become an Israeli citizen.
I am.
Okay.
Okay, that's not the case. Anybody who is Jewish, I want you guys to read the article and I want you to see indeed who is eligible to become an Israeli citizen. You'll see that many people who are not necessarily Jewish are eligible to become Israeli citizens.
Well, anyone is, but like, using the
No,
law.
that's not true that anybody is.
But
Not
you
for
have to
automatic citizenship. So look at the article in number 1.
ask for automatic citizen. It just says who is eligible for Israeli citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like to be an automatic citizen, you
Well, meaning eligible today, right now. That I could wake up in the morning and decide I want to be an Israeli citizen.
Well, yeah, okay, but that's
Just phrase it that way.
That's not what the question.
Rephrase it that way. It helps.
Okay, is that true about American citizenship? Anyone who passes the citizenship test? Did you all take a citizenship test?
I didn't take it.
Why not?
We were born here.
Ah, okay. So who's eligible for being a U.S. citizen? Anyone who's born in America is a U.S. citizen. Not
That's
only
right.
that, my son was born in Israel is a U.S. citizen because I'm a U.S. citizen.
I did that before.
If you want to refresh, I think she said Lexi said she
I
posted.
said born. They're all born.
Where did you write it?
What are some? Oh, I'm all the way down here. Hold on. Pulling it
Oh, you
up.
moved it all the way down?
All right, I'm coming up.
Wait, she's coming up.
There you go. Refresh. There you go. Born. There. Oh, it's right next to anyone who's Jewish. Refresh again. Lower.
Okay, except guys, you're missing a big thing here. Anyone who is Jewish. Jews can automatically become citizens of Israel. Do you have to be Jewish to become a citizen of Israel?
Oh, I think I'm dumb.
Automatically?
For the most part.
Automatically, you have to be Jewish, but to be a citizen, you don't
Citizens.
have to be Jewish.
Actually, if you read the article, you don't have to be Jewish. Anybody, because the state of Israel was founded, right, in 1948. And that followed the most traumatic event that had ever happened in Jewish history, right? The end of World War II and the Shoah. So the definition of who is entitled to become an Israeli citizen automatically is anybody with one Jewish grandparent. And someone with one Jewish grandparent is not necessarily Jewish. But if you have one Jewish grandparent, and that's why when over 1 million Jews came to Israel on Aliyah from the Soviet Union, many hundreds of thousands entered Israel and became citizens, but they weren't necessarily Jewish, and they're still not necessarily Jewish. And that's a very important distinction to understand. Somebody wrote that the law of return allows for people to live in Israel, creates an automatic homeland, and can be helpful in case of persecution. So Jews who need to flee, you just have to have one grandparent who is Jewish. You don't necessarily have to be Jewish.
I want to make a Jewish announcement.
I'm sorry?
Announcement. Do you know the Weitzman Institute?
Yeah, sure.
My dad got an award.
Your dad is a scientist?
He got like the award, the Weitzman Award, or whatever.
Is he a scientist?
Yeah.
He must be very smart then. The Weitzman Institute is a really beautiful, incredible science institute that does a lot of amazing research.
He was on it, or whatever it's called. I don't even know. But
Okay.
I was there.
So guys,
Jewish.
basically to become an American citizen, right? Anybody who's born to an American. Today the laws are a little bit tighter. The American has, if you're born overseas to an American, your parents have to have lived for a certain number of years in America. But if you guys now moved anywhere in the world and had a child, your children would be eligible for automatic American citizenship because you're American citizens. So in Israel, people who are eligible for automatic citizenship don't have to have been born in Israel. They have to be either have one Jewish grandparent or be Jewish. And there are ways, remember 20% of Israeli citizens are Arab. And there are ways that other people come to Israel also and live in the country, sometimes fight in the IDF, volunteer for the army, and they apply for citizenship, but it's a long process. They're not automatically given citizenship. And I think, I don't know if whoever wrote this about the law of return and what it allows for, I think that you hit the nail on the head. It was really written and it exists so that Jews have a Jewish homeland and Jews anywhere in the world have a place to go and be safe if they're persecuted. Okay, but I was more interested to see.
Wrote that. If you go to the bottom, I said, here we go. Hold on. Wait. Bad situations in your country.
Bad situations in your country. Okay, that Jews can leave. Although Many Jews make Aliyah to Israel, like my family, for not to escape persecution or escape a bad situation, but for positive reasons, because we want to live in a country that is a Jewish country, and be part of the story and the future story of the Jewish people. Okay, what are some of the differences between how you can become an Israeli citizen or a U.S. citizen?
A U.S. citizen is like, I guess, very hard
What's very hard?
to become a U.S. citizen.
It's harder to become a U.S. citizen.
Yes.
Okay, in what way is it hard?
Because if you're not like, a lot of people just can't. I don't know.
Do you mean because so many people want to come here and it's hard to get a visa, it's hard to come in, it's hard to pass the citizenship test?
Yeah. Like, my friend from Mexico, she comes to America, like, every year, and she says, like, it takes her, like, 3 hours in the airport just to come. Like, she just do all this stuff.
Okay. So America has a lot of rules who can become citizens, but by and large, if you follow those rules, if you apply for a visa, if you get a visa, if you enter the country legally, if you study for the citizenship test, which isn't so terribly difficult, and you pass it, you can become a citizen. You should know that in Israel, it's very easy for Jews or people with a Jewish grandparent to become citizens. It's very, very difficult for people who are not Jewish to become a citizen of Israel. So if you're born in Israel, if you come to Israel to work and you're Chinese and you get married and you have a child in Israel, your child is not automatically an Israeli citizen. And it's very, very difficult for somebody who comes here who's not Jewish to become a citizen. In America, do you have to meet any requirements in terms of your national identity or religious identity to become a citizen?
No.
No. That's a huge difference between getting American citizenship or Israeli citizenship. What do you guys think about that?
Unfair.
Why?
I like it.
Why? You can't just say something like that is not fair and say why.
I don't know. I'm just trying to get to college. I don't really think about this stuff.
I really think.
Yeah.
Why would
Okay,
it be-
where's Stephanie speaking up with, it's the Jewish country, it's the only Jewish country, it should remain a Jewish country.
I
Okay,
agree.
that's kind of an obvious answer. It's a very small country. If the country is overrun or overflooded, 20% of the country are non-Jews to begin with. If the country is overrun or overflooded with people who want to come here because there are good living conditions or good economic conditions or it's a beautiful place, Israel won't stay a Jewish country.
Yeah, I think it should say Jewish country. We gotta be like a little strict. I know it's like not fair sometimes, but like that's like the only benefit. And that's the only thing we have, I guess. Like that's like just for us, I guess. You know?
Okay. Other
Yeah,
people agree, disagree?
And if we have all these people that like are in bad situations and they all come in, then the economy will go down. So.
But this is
That's
real
it.
things. There's people like, for example, like refugee crisis.
Yeah.
There's people that are coming in that are not even given refugee status because it's refugee status is a form of citizenship.
But isn't Israel taking in like a bunch of Syrian refugees and stuff?
Nope.
Israel has taken in many refugees over the year. Israel was one of the only countries that took in Vietnamese refugees when Vietnamese people were just sailing out of their country in boats and drowning. Israel has taken in Lebanese refugees, many Lebanese Christians who had to flee their country after Israel pulled out of Lebanon and the war in Lebanon. But it's a complicated situation. Israel gives medical aid to Syrian refugees. It's a complicated situation, largely because Israel is surrounded by countries which are very, very poor. And there are many people who would seek to come here to better their lives economically. And it's a small country. And let's remember also, Israel took in over 800,000 refugees since 1948. Penniless, poor, homeless refugees who were forced to flee the Arab countries surrounding Israel because they were Jewish and their families had lived for 2,000 years in Arab countries, but they were thrown out or persecuted after 1948. So Israel is a country made up of refugees and has absorbed and built the country.
The Jewish refugees, though, doesn't really count.
Right. These are not, we're talking.
Refugees not count. When Israel opened their border, let's think about that for a minute.
No, we're talking about
Lori, let me clarify for both sides because I think I am understanding. So the thing is, they're saying that it's not the same because that refugees that are Jewish, it's easier for them to gain citizenship because they are Jewish. They're considered Jewish. If refugees are coming in that are not Jewish, it's a lot harder for them to gain citizenship or live in the country.
But I'm not talking about the status of the refugee. I'm talking about the fact that a country, any country, America, Israel, any country, and especially a country the size of the state of New Jersey, can only absorb and survive so many people. So let's remember that Israel opened her doors, and yes, they were Jewish, but they left with nothing. They left with the shirts on their backs. Israel absorbed over 800,000 refugees, and to find places, food, shelter, education, medical care, that affects a country. No country can just open her borders and accept everybody who comes knocking at her doors. Even America can't do that and doesn't do that.
Stephanie.
Wait, Stephanie, can you say it?
So, like, I think that the objective of Israel, like, the reason why it was created and why it's a Jewish state is to provide a Jewish homeland for Jews all over the world. So I understand, and I think that it's, like, fair to say that, like, when accepting, like, people from other countries, Israel should prioritize Jews because there's only one country in the whole world that's a Jewish state, and there are, you know, lots of other countries where people can go. But I think that it's good that Israel always tries to, like, make, like, the right decision for, like, other people, like how they're, like, how you said, how they're helping, like, Syrian refugees, like get medical care and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it's good that Israel, like, does both.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I argued one side, but I want to tell you, and Tova can tell you more about this, and we're going to actually open up our next class learning a little more about this, is that in spite of the fact that I can argue that, and many Israelis argue that, Israel does take in, and there's a lot of arguments amongst Israeli society about how we should be more open to taking in refugees, meaning there's two sides to everything. And you have the human side when you're faced with people who are in danger and need a safe place to go. And then you have, like, the ideological when you say you're a Jewish homeland and you have to keep the country Jewish. So it's not so simple, and it is something which is very controversial, even in Israel.
I think that we should use.
It's really, really, guys, it's really controversial. We'll bring it up more. There's different statuses of people coming into the country. Well, no, I mean, Laura, I mean, I will talk about it next week because I worked with refugees and asylum seekers in Israel, so very close to the issue.
Asylum seekers?
So that's the name that they're given is asylum seekers because they're not given refugee status. So there's a difference between seeking asylum and refugee status. It's a different thing.
Right.
We should go somewhere else.
Okay, guys?
Yes.
We don't really have time to do it. Okay. We're going to pick up next week. I just want us to look at some studies. There have been some studies done over the past few years comparing American Jews and Israeli Jews, their ideas, their beliefs, their practices. So we're going to start next week just looking at some quotes from some of those studies and comparing those two. And then we're going to pick up looking at, this led us kind of into our next topic, which will be looking at different people in Israeli societies. One piece of that will be refugees, asylum seekers, people who come to Israel for all sorts of reasons. Another piece of that will be what someone else raised this evening, looking at people who are different in society, how Israel deals with, for example, gay, lesbian, transgender people in society. Okay, guys, thank you very much for learning with me tonight. And I will, or this morning, your time. Have a good Sunday. I hope your Sunday is as good as mine was, or even better. And I will see you next week. Bye, guys.